meeting to order. Joining the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic stands justice for all. Right. Thank you all for being here on such short notice. We do appreciate it. I'm really glad to have all the people here. There's at least 20 people online as well. So that's a great turnout. I'm glad people are passionate about things that are going on.
There's people waiting to get in, so you know.
Brendan's on it. We'll wait just a minute before we start the presentation then. We're good. All right, at this time, I would like to ask our acting superintendent to present to us what's brought us here tonight. Sure.
Thanks. So we have a situation that most likely is going to require some degree of board action. And it has evolved. I've only been in this role for a short period of time. But we're at a place where I thought we could not wait any longer to inform you of kind of what was going on and where we have to go next. So we have Sarah Porter School. It's a 2-room schoolhouse. There's 2 teachers and 1 para budgeted for that location. Approximately 20 students in grades 1 through 4. So we had a teacher resign on June 25th. At this point, we don't have any viable applicants for that position. And we need to come up with a plan for how we're going to maintain student safety and educate those students. So I think it's important to understand like why now. So the teacher resigned on the 25th. The former superintendent was absent away from the 17th of June. So before that resignation through July 10th, which was the date that superintendent resigned. I do know that the principal made multiple attempts to contact the superintendent and try to move this process forward that didn't end up with them being able to. And then I was approved by the board on July 12th and we posted the position on July 12th. So in our district, we require, or the superintendent is required to approve posting vacancies. And so as soon as I was appointed by the board, then we posted the vacancy. So we have had 2 applicants for the positions since July 12th. Haven't gotten a response from either one. Reached out, no response yet, and so the position remains posted. I think the concern is that it is now August 1st. Kids show up August 27th, no matter what. And if we don't get a viable candidate for this, what is our plan? So there's different options, right? On the agenda, we posted as the possible suspension of instruction there, because in some ways that's worst case scenario. And I want to make sure people understood, like, worst case scenario is enough to make all of these people show up tonight, right? And it's important for us to kind of look through all the different solutions before we make any sort of decision or action moving forward. I think that it's important, my personal opinion is anyway, that it's important for all of our attendance areas to figure out what works best for our attendance areas and pursue in that manner and make sure our communities are part of all of that. But we have this weird scenario now where we don't have a staff member and we need to figure out what to do at some point in the next very short amount of time because kids are showing up in 26 days. So there's a few solutions. One is temporarily move all the students and the remaining teacher and the para to Allsted primary for 24-25. We maintain the Sarah Porter building, keep it open, keep funding the same. hopefully be able to hire in spring of 25 when there are generally more candidates in the pool and available. If you do that, you take the humans out of Sarah Porter for the time being, you could save roughly 20,000 in building operation costs. But I think that's relatively nominal in the bigger picture of what we want for our community and our kids. So that is a solution. Another solution is to just temporarily move grades 1 and 2 out, because those were the grades taught by the vacancy, and still maintain the building, keep the funding the same, and again, try to hire in the spring. And then third potential solution is just the involuntary reassignment of another SAU60 teacher to Sarah Porter, and maintain those instructional models that we currently have at Sarah Porter. There's potentially pros and cons to that. One is all of our contracts have already gone out, and they're required to go out far before now. And you know, there's ripple effects to all of these decisions. So there's those three options. There could be an additional solution that just hasn't evolved yet. Things are moving relatively quickly just because we have this drop dead time frame on the other end. If you class sizes at each of the schools right now, grade 1, Allsted Primary has 7, Sarah Porter has 5. If you were to combine the 2 in grade 1, you'd have 12. Allsted Primary has 2 in 2nd grade, 7 in Sarah Porter in 2nd grade, for a total of 9. So theoretically, you could move those 12 students from Sarah Porter over to Allsted Primary and leave the remaining 8 students at Sarah Porter. That was one of the 3 options. In grades 3, we have 11 at Allsted Primary, 5 at Sarah Porter, for a total of 16, and 10 in grade 4 at Allsted Primary, and 3 at Sarah Porter, for a total of 13. So those would be students who those 8 students either could stay at Sarah Porter or move those 8 students over to Allsted Primary. Combining would shift Allsted Primary a little bit also, because right now my understanding is there's a combined grade 1-2 class there. So this would be a discrete grade 1 and a discrete grade 2 if we move the Sarah Porter students over in the scenario where you're moving all Sarah Porter school. In the scenario where you're moving only grades 1 and 2 from Sarah Porter to Allsted Primary, now you're looking at 21 kids in a combined grade 1-2 class. Because the remaining teacher would stay at Sarah Porter with the 3rd and 4th graders. So the Allsted Primary configuration is a combined grade 1-2, and now you'd have 21 kids in that combined grade 1-2 class. It's a scenario where I think there's been a lot of chatter regarding the timing, regarding the communication, and all of those things. And it's a bit of a perfect storm because the notification came while the former person responsible for all this wasn't available, and that ultimately delayed the whole process. It is very hard to hire quality people this time of year. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to hire quality people this time of year. And I think that's what we're running into a little bit right now, with just low applicant numbers and then unresponsive, to date, unresponsive candidates. So I think our purpose this evening my purpose this evening is just to make sure the board is aware of what our situation is. I thought it was imperative that we make you aware now that we know, right, immediately, because we need to have some time to think and gather information and make the best informed decision for our students. And I think it'll be important for the board to take action in the near future, not tonight, but in the near future, because we really need to have a decision on the 12th if we're either reassigning somebody or we're moving kids. We need to know that by the 12th because staff come back the following week and we need time to be able to shift materials, resources, humans, all of that in order for staff to be prepared when they come back the following week, regardless of who we're moving and where we're moving them. So we need the information out now that we have it. We need to gather feedback from the community about this temporary scenario. And then we need to have a deadline for when the board will consider it and make a decision, which I would recommend at your next meeting on the 12th. I think another piece of this is, I've heard a lot of people saying that it's just closing the school, and that's not the scenario we have right now. It is, how do we ensure the safety of our kids and the instructional programs 3 weeks from now when we have to open our doors? And we're in a very non-ideal situation, right? The intention, the plan was to continue Sarah Porter as always, and if the community wanted to take a different direction, the community could take a different direction following all of their normal procedures. But we have this other scenario right now facing us where we might have to take other action first to protect the interests of the Langdon people, protect the interests of the district, protect the students, protect the staff, and ensure that we can actually deliver an instructional program. So that's where we are at right now. I mean, my suggestion is we hear from folks and hear what the concerns are related to this current situation. I think it's important for us also to think about the idea of the long term in another form and setting, because I tell you, I'm certainly not prepared to talk about a long term. That's not my, as an acting superintendent, that's not really my role or purview. My role and purview is to ensure that kids are safe and that operations can happen. And that's where we're at right now. Like, we have a deadline. We need to ensure kids' safety. We need to ensure instructional programs can happen. That's where we are right now. Whatever longer term conversation should really be organized by the community and the board in a much more intentional and planned setting and process, right? If they want to engage in that, but right now I think we have sort of the pressing immediacy of this that we need to address. So my recommendation is we hear from folks, hear maybe other solutions regarding this particular situation, not the long term at this point, so that the board can gather that feedback and help us make a more long, a plan of action for how we make sure we open on the 27th.
Thank you for that. So I'll open it up to the board for questions.
Question, then statement. Is 21 students in a combined second grade first and second grade classroom, given a brand new curriculum? Is that too many people, too many kids in one room for one teacher teaching two different grades?
My professional opinion is that is not the best way to go. 21 kids in a multi-grade, it's not a multi-age, it's a multi-grade classroom teaching two curriculums to two different grade levels. I certainly wouldn't want that role. Is it possible? Yes. Is it best for kids? My opinion is no.
So just my personal feelings about the whole thing, the optics of this look horrible. I am a proponent of consolidation on many different levels, that I'd like to see consolidation happen, not only at the elementary school level, but possibly the middle school level. But this just throws a whole monkey wrench in the whole process. I would, if we're gonna talk about closing Sarah Porter permanently, I think it'd be nice to have a nice, thoughtful conversation and involve the community, have lots of meetings. And this just, again, the optics of this looks so bad that I'm not even sure I can support us even having that conversation later this year. So we have to make a decision, obviously on the 12th. And I think you kind of mentioned it, but I want to bring it up again. I've been in education almost 20 years and know that the time when people start moving around from job to job is the March, April timeframe.
Yeah.
And once the March, April timeframe is done, all the people who are looking to find jobs, I dare say the good ones, who are looking to find jobs have been placed already. And what you wind up with is a very small applicant pool. So we really have three options. One is we just ignore it and maybe get a substitute teacher in here and try and see what happens. This is like a good option to me. A combined first, second grade classroom with a brand new curriculum and a substitute teacher sounds like we would not be serving our students effectively. I think it's a bad solution. The second option you've already mentioned is to keep students at third and fourth at Sarah Porter. That only leaves 2 adults in the building.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not a big safety issue, having just 2 adults in that building. If one of them happens to be sick, you've only got 1 adult in the building. If that person needs to go to the bathroom, what do you do? So there'd have to be somebody else brought in to make that happen, right? Because there's a teacher and a paraprofessional. That's why there's 2 adults in the room. There's a third and fourth grade teacher and a paraprofessional. So there'd have to be somebody else from the district brought in just to sit in Sarah Porter and do their job. Someone's saying, no, we don't need more than 2 adults in a building.
No, I mean, you're talking an 8-to-2 ratio.
No, no safety, for safety,
Right.
for safety.
Correct. There's 8 students, 2 adults. So there's nothing wrong with an adult running to the bathroom for 2 minutes and they're being one adult with these
That
students.
one of those adults is out sick that morning.
And give us something like anyone else who would be out sick.
All right, so I don't want to get into the conversation. That's my other big concern. And, you know, the option that seems the most viable is a temporary, unless we find, you know, the most viable option is we find somebody comes, if anybody knows anybody who's a teacher who wants a job, send them. Because that is the best solution for us at this time, is to get a teacher in there to teach that class. Someone who's certified to teach that class. Oh, and just a reminder that the school board cannot close the school on its own. That we changed the articles of agreement, we modified them slightly so that in order for a school to close permanently, it must be voted on by the residents of that town. Right, so the school board does not have the power to close the school permanently without voters voting to say, yes, close that school. So we are not voting to close that school permanently. If we vote to temporarily suspend operations.
That's also a multi-step process. My understanding, you would have the voters would need to take action on the articles of agreement first and then take action on whether or not.
They already took action on the.
We already did.
But I
But,
thought they said that for that town, it still has to have one.
oh,
The town would have to vote.
Only the people of Langdon could vote to close Sarah Porter. Has nothing to do with the school board itself. The school board would not vote on that. It would be a vote of the people and it would be a majority of the people in Langdon only. Why? Only Langdon.
Yeah, and that makes total sense to me.
So we set it up in the last few years so that it was no longer a district-wide vote, but only Langdon. And that was the change. Shelley?
so. Yeah, I'm baffled by even the mention of closing the school long-term. So that conversation for me is completely off the table. That's not even what we're considering here.
No.
That's not. For most of the people sitting in the audience, I'm hearing this for the first time as well. So just be aware of that.
Well, the board is, right? Like I'm bringing this to you now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So hear that, like, these discussions about Sarah Porter being closed, it's no different than North Charlestown and Charlestown. That's a Langdon decision. That's a Langdon resident discussion. And I completely respect that. It's not my business. That's up to Langdon on what they want to do. Have we, and you may have we asked any of the teachers in the district for reassignment?
No.
Can
we-
I ask the superintendent? I'm kind of looking at her, thank you.
We have not asked any of the teachers in the district yet around reassignment to this particular role. We have asked teachers in the district for reassignment to other areas, but not this particular role.
Alright. So. And knowing that we're short-staffed across the board, so we take one from one area, doesn't mean that that solves the problem, it means it could very well create another issue in another area, right?
Mhm.
So obviously. My first thought is that we should try to look in district, but
Yeah.
again, I'm sure you have. Or at least thinking about it or seeing the potential for somewhere. So that's my first thought. And then we would need a whole lot of other conversations before I'm willing to move anywhere on anything. So.
Go ahead, Jeff.
My question, I think, is for Kevin. Did we, because of all of the rigmarole that went on with our previous superintendent, did anybody approach the person that resigned about not resigning right now? Is there any possibility that whoever that teacher was, could come back or anything like that? Because we didn't have a superintendent when she quit, or he quit. I don't even know if it was a man or a woman. But my question is, did anybody reach out to say, geez, do you have to quit now?
We did not.
I
She
was
accepted
just
a
curious
job
if
in
that,
the school district.
she accepted an offer from another school district. I was just concerned that because we didn't have a superintendent at the time, that it fell through the cracks and nobody approached this person.
I can certainly say I did not talk to this person, because that was not on my radar at that time.
Right, it wasn't,
Uh,
well, obviously it wasn't on the school board, right? We didn't know. But my question was, is that a viable option? But I guess not, that she's already taken another position.
General practice, we don't, when someone resigns to accept another job, we don't,
We don't have an exit interview or anything?
well, that.
That's not been a common practice in this district, is my understanding. Exit interviews have not been a common or consistent or reliable practice. I think, I mean, I can only speak for myself in scenarios where I'm made aware of somebody looking for employment in a different location. I've had conversations with those folks before accepting another position. And retained a couple people that way.
Yeah, but I mean.
But
I'm
I
thinking
don't know, that, I mean, that's just.
General HR policy, I think, should be to find out why a person's leaving, so maybe we can fix that problem in the future or whatever. I just think that it's something that again, the board should look at, or we as an administration should look at as maybe something that we can start implementing if we haven't already.
Mhm. I do know, I will say that some folks were asked if they, some folks in the district requested an exit interview with the superintendent. Some folks were asked and again, not consistently. These are just sort of one-offs that I was made aware of. But it didn't always
It didn't
happen.
You can always do it. To me, I mean, I'm retired now, but pretty much everywhere I worked, when it was time to leave, they wanted to know why. And so they would ask the questions and I would give the answers. And I totally understand, geez, this person's paying us more. Fine, that's a legitimate excuse. But it's always nice to know.
Just a
Go ahead,
simple
Shelley.
request, could we put up the 3 options one more time, because I don't have the presentation on my phone?
Sarah, do you have any questions you'd like to add?
No, it's a very interesting conversation. I have very mixed emotions. I happened to be on a EMT call today and had quite a rousing conversation with the other EMTs from Ackworth about this issue, and they do feel that they were thinking that it was closing the school, and I was like, I don't think that's where we're at all, and they were not opposed to reducing our real estate, but they were like, this is going way too fast, and so I was like, well, slow down, we're doing this slowly, so just getting the message out there that we're moving slowly on the concept of a permanent closure, so.
Very true. It's not even on an agenda coming up or a workshop coming up.
Right.
This is our scenario right now. So now that the three options are back up, does that bring any other additional questions after the conversation?
This I agree with Corey. There are solutions, but none of them are the best.
No, they really aren't the best solution, and I think a larger conversation that the district needs to have. And I might be overstepping a little bit here at the moment, but after 2 years of observation, and knowing a little bit of the history regarding the Charlestown attendance area, a little bit of the history regarding the Walpole attendance area, now we have this scenario. I think that we really, as a district, need to take a look at our separate attendance areas and how to embrace their autonomy and individuality and uniqueness, and for what they are, and figure out ways to better operate as a district that really better meets the needs of the three separate attendance areas versus continually, sometimes as a principal in this district, it feels like we're continually trying to shove a round peg in a square hole, or square peg in a round hole, and that's really hard. And it's difficult to make decisions or to move anything forward. So my personal belief is that Langdon, Alsted, Ackworth, they need to be responsible and have ownership and stake in how they want to operate moving forward, just as Charlestown needs to figure out how they want to operate moving forward, and Walpole needs to figure out how they want to operate moving forward. And who is anybody else to tell them how to do it? This is just this weird, unique scenario where I'm in a position where I need to protect kids and protect the liability of the district. There's no good options right now. So how are we going to move forward? Because we have such a tight time frame and no good options on the table. And unless something changes in the next week and 3 days or so, then we're gonna have to pick something.
All right, well, thank you very much for the presentation. It is definitely a lot to think of. At this point, I'd like to open it up to the public.
Alyssa, prior to opening up, is there any movement next week to meet with the residents of Langdon, Alsted, Ackworth? I mean, I know we have people here, we're gonna hear from them. That's really not, this one meeting is not a fair kind of option to have their voice be heard, because seriously, people only had 1 day notice. So we have to make a decision by the 12th. The board does. However, I'm not really sure that I'm fit to make that decision. As Corey said, I feel more comfortable to make that decision regarding Charlestown. I don't spend a lot of time in Langdon and Ackworth and Elstead. Well, I fish there, but,
Well, you're always
Corey
welcome.
said- Well, it's cool. I think it really needs to be those three towns that come together and work out what's best for them. So giving them time to come together as a community with Kevin and Corey and, all the other players to find out how they would like to move forward.
Well, I think also it's part of a bigger conversation that those communities may want to have about how they see the long-term viability.
Right, but I don't wanna get into like those long-term conversations, because that's definitely something that they can do long-term. I'm just talking about this situation that needs to be resolved no later than August 12th. Or he's giving us a drop dead date.
Yep.
So what are we doing for those communities in order to try to get them to come together and voice their concerns or their wants and their wishes? Other than tonight.
I agree, we should have an additional public forum to next week to discuss this with, get more people voices heard. So,
Do we have a date that's open in the calendar to do so? When is everybody available?
available.
You're on.
I'm in Moose Head Lake for the whole next week.
I'm flying out later next week.
So earlier in the week is better for you, like Monday or Tuesday?
I'm going to be I will be at a conference in Meredith Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But I'm back Wednesday night, but I have oogles of Zoom meetings Wednesday night. Thursday is a possibility, Thursday evening, and Friday evening is a possibility. But Friday night meetings are never good.
Taking no action as board. Not convinced that you need to have a quorum.
I
If you
don't think
send
we-
representatives there
Yeah.
on behalf of the board. If you can do that.
Yeah, I think if Kevin could go, or, so the representatives of those towns, I'm not saying I wouldn't go. But I think it's more important to have Kevin, Joe or Sarah, and I know it's impossible to try to coordinate even 3 people's schedule to the urgent meeting.
But I think Sarah said she could do Thursday and Kevin can do Thursday and I can do Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday, so maybe that is a solution.
Thursday the 8th.
Yeah.
Thursday the 8th.
And then just make sure that we blast it out there, so all the residents have an opportunity, if they can attend. Because I know there was a lot of panic about tonight's meeting, that the board was gonna make a decision or that something was gonna happen with the school. So I'm sure that there's a lot of people sitting right there or on Zoom may have been in panic mode that something big, and something is big happening. I'm not saying it isn't, but if we can just make sure that we blast it everywhere so that those residents have the ability to attend. And maybe have a Zoom option, so they can.
Oops. I can put a sign up at the South Ackworth Village store, so that's kind of and also up at the town hall.
So does 7 o'clock at night work better for people?
Better.
7 o'clock works, Sarah?
7 works better for me. Yeah.
All right, then that is a potential plan. Thursday, 8 to 7 p.m. will be the next time.
Here in the library.
Here in the library. There will be a Zoom option.
If there's a Zoom option, I could probably,
If there's a Zoom option, I could
sneak my
probably.
computer in there without my wife seeing it, and could probably do it from, because I know I
And
have.
do not feel like everybody deserves vacation time.
So I think we need to make a distinction between a board meeting and a public forum.
Mhm.
So we can't have a forum if it's not gonna be a public meeting.
Oh, well, I'd be happy to miss it.
I think we just need to
I
differentiate between
think
the
it's
two.
easier if you make it a forum, it's more laid back.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the formalities of the whole meeting, and people can talk freely without getting
And
overly.
hopefully we come up with an idea that makes sense to everybody.
1 hour, 7 to 8. 7, 1 hour, 7 to 8.
The same public speaking would apply, so there would have to be in person in order to speak to it or ask a question.
participate.
All right, thank you, Shelley. So at this time, I will open it up for public comment. I ask that people stand, announce their name. If somebody is seconding something that's been said already, just simply stand and say, I agree with or so it may be. We will, because there are so many people here, we will ask that people maintain a 3-minute maximum, and I will keep a timer, just so you know, until everyone is heard. And so if anyone would like to start.
My name is Emily Brunhauser, and I'm the 3rd and 4th grade teacher at Fairport School. This is my 11th school year there. I'll start off by apologizing. I definitely just operate under the desire for efficiency, so I wouldn't be answering questions if I wasn't sure the answer, but my apologies nonetheless. I would, I guess, start with just saying that I'm definitely concerned about the idea of a suspension of instruction, because I feel like it could quickly turn into, no time limit on that. We could keep kicking the can down the line with that, if we're talking about viable candidates being available in March and April. We're definitely not going to be moving the school back from April to June, and we're all very aware of that. So this would definitely at least be a 1-year fix. This wouldn't be a half-year solution. So again, I think it's a real concern that there would be no end to a suspension, and that could quickly get away from us. I think in terms of supporting the curriculum for 1st and 2nd grade students, I agree that potentially having a combination of what would be maybe 12 students and having 2 separate curriculums nonetheless could be daunting for a new teacher, but we have plenty of staff attendance area-wide that travels to us already to support ELA instruction times and math instruction times, where they would be able to have the support for that 2nd grade during that time. So that's definitely something to keep in mind on that. Again, I definitely want to go back to keep talking about, this being a really weird scenario and just being unsafe. There's definitely nothing unsafe about 8 students and 2 staff, especially if we're trying to run across the street from Bruce and Ginger, who come running faster than anyone else anyway when everyone's hurt. But there's nothing unsafe. That's definitely not something I want us to be talking about. And I just kind of want us to run the point, like whenever we have potentially maternity leave or something like that, there's no issue with moving a staff for 2, 3, 4 months. There's never any discussion about that. We never have an emergency board meeting because a teacher's having a baby, So us not having a teacher, especially, at this point in the school year, isn't anything that's ever been a concern before. We've always pulled staff within attendance area to cover leaves of absences. So that should definitely be, in my opinion, something that's considered first and foremost. Secondarily, if we're talking about, least disruptive scenarios, we're looking at 2 students in Alstead Primary in the 2nd grade. Be significantly less disruptive to move 2 students to Sarah Porter from that 2nd grade. That would free up an entire teacher. We just this year decided at Alstead Primary to do 2 kindergarten teachers and a 1-2 split. As far as everyone's concerned over there, it's a K1 split. So there wouldn't be anything wrong numbers wise with going back to the way it was last year at Alstead Primary, having 1 kindergarten teacher, 1 K1 split, and a free teacher then who has, I'm sorry, but it would make a lot more sense for 1 teacher and 2 students to move over if we're talking about transfer than an entire school and 2 staff. That's significantly less disruptive.
I'm gonna ask you to hold and spin. If we get more at the end, I'd invite you.
Thank you.
I'm not, and I agree that last minute, kind of the panic set in, and my grandson, that's where he's coming from. But I think that moving somebody should be the first option. I agree with that option. Wanted to see if you first.
What's your name?
My name is Donald Greenwood. I am 9 years old. And I would like to start with that I am the third generation to go to Sarah Porter. And it will be my last year at Sarah Porter this year. And I do not really want to spend it at Elstead because I have really good memories there. And I see that is unfair to the student. I found out 3 weeks before school starts that we might not be attending Sarah Porter. To me, this is just unfair. And here are a few other reasons it's unfair to close the school temporarily. One, remember.
Take your time.
Reason one. I'm going into the highest grade this year, and I want to help the coming first graders, like the fourth graders helped me when I was in first grade. Reason two, we are all friends at Sarah Porter, and we help each other if we have trouble. Well, yeah, trouble doing our work. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
My kids are fourth generation to go to Sarah Porter. So when you say that, oh, someone threw up a flare because of closing the school, that's what your agenda suggested, that you were temporarily closing the school. We didn't find out about this till 10 o'clock last night, which really frustrates me because you can send a robocall if a bus is going to be late. The parents of the school didn't even know that this meeting was happening tonight. The teacher didn't even know this was happening tonight. This isn't right. It's not right. It's not fair. And what you're doing is, we've had substitute teachers at Sarah Porter before. We've been through this scenario before where we've moved teachers to the school, voluntary, involuntary, whatever, to cover the need for the school. We've never talked about moving the entire school out of the building or half the school out of the building. That building is the heart of our community. And what you're doing isn't the right thing. So I offered to Kevin to be on the hiring committee because I was on Emily's hiring committee. I will post wherever you want me to post the job listing so we can find somebody to fill this position. Closing the school is not the option. It's not the right thing for the community or these kids. So
You hired me.
I got hired 3 years ago, and she's now the lead teacher at that school. So sorry to get emotional, but it's frustrating that the board, you guys can send out whatever, but I don't understand why the parents and the teachers weren't informed of this meeting tonight. And people are up in arms and concerned because your agenda said you were temporarily closing their school. And nobody got noticed that this was happening. I got it noticed from our select board last night at 10 o'clock. So
You didn't run the website for Town of Langdon and post that. That's the only way anyone was. That's all.
this is one single Facebook post
Andrea.
on our town Facebook page.
Could I have, if you'd like to speak? Thank you.
So I'll just say that I agree and I second that. Andrea, it is the heart of our community first and foremost. So I'm very concerned by the gentleman in white commenting continuously about bringing in this long-term plan. I think it's really inappropriate to be saying that at all. My questions are recruitment. What's your action that you're taking for any sort of recruitment? It sounds like that's an ongoing issue. That what somebody can answer now?
So this is a public comment. You're allowed to say things and it's not a communication. So we will actually go ahead and take that under advisement and put out a statement.
Okay, so then I guess what I'd like to say, if it's just public comment, then is really push the interest, I think, of for you guys to have more of an involvement in recruitment and finding more kind of proactive ways to get positive, good teachers in the community.
I really agree with Corey's comment about embracing the autonomy and individuality of the schools. I think you're absolutely right that we're constantly trying to work with, you know, putting a square into a circle, hole. I think that's perfect because we could do something really great, but I think we're fighting against ourselves. Yeah, I do. I'm extremely disappointed in this consideration. Just talking about closing, shifting students at all, I think it would be extremely disruptive. I have a son that just graduated 4th grade, but I do have another one coming up through, so I'm still very invested in what's going to be taking place here. But I believe Sarah Porter Elementary is a very unique asset to our community. As you can see, very small student ratios. Again, I'll second that with the 8 students to 2 teachers in the building. I mean, you have infant. What is it? Infant is 1 adult to 5 infants. So I'm sorry, but the kids are 9 and 10. 2 adults with the 3rd and 4th graders is not a safety consideration. But yeah, I do think that it's a unique opportunity for our kids to have that sort of one-on-one focus, give them the opportunity to grow in that rural setting, something that is very hard pressed that you're going to find anywhere today. I think we really need to build off of our unique characteristics in our small towns. And yeah, I think we need to focus on maybe pulling from the district itself, at the very least, not moving the 3rd and 4th graders. I think Emily's idea of, you know, the 2 students in 2nd grade, shifting them over with that teacher, potentially with our 2nd graders, you know, doing something, you gotta think outside the box, creativity here. This is a lot at stake. This isn't just numbers. It isn't just 2 2nd graders, 5 3rd graders. It's all these faces right here and the faces coming up. So I think you really need to consider that. Thank you.
Well, Martin, I am a Langdon resident and a student from Sarah Porter School back when each side, each room had 4 grades. It's been a while. We had 2 teachers, no aides, no music teacher, no gym teacher. Everybody did just fine. We graduated a lot of very good students. I think Emily's idea of moving the Elster teacher to Langdon with 2 students is a good idea.
My name is Laura Rayo. I live in Langdon. I worked at the Alsted Primary School for 28 years. I retired this year. I have no children. I would hate to see Sarah Porter close. When I started kindergarten last year, classroom, we had no teacher. We had a sub. And she stayed for 6 weeks. She went the first 2 weeks, she had no plans. She was on her own. I worked with her, we worked a whole bit. There's enough adults in APS, sometimes 3 people in 1 class, that somebody could come from there over to Sarah Porter. Sarah Porter does fun things. We did nothing fun this year. And I'm not, if it didn't pass with a certain group, we didn't do it. No community service. We didn't have even parents in the building. You know, before, Mr. Hicks, your job was, you wanted parents in that school. You wanted back to community. It didn't happen this year. Why? I don't know. I spoke my mind. That's why I ended up getting done, really. It's too cliquey. It's all about discipline. It's pathetic of what these kids can't do. Just have fun out at recess. Stand on the wall for 20 minutes. When those children should be running out at recess. We used to have so much fun at APS and did such things, fun things with the kids, with parents, the whole bit. We didn't even, usually the Alsted Fire Department comes and sprays the kids. Nope, not this year. We didn't even walk up to Violet's pool, which everybody likes to have us go up there. Nope, not this year. We did absolutely nothing. We didn't even do a Memorial Day, anything. Not, I think Ackworth did, Sarah Porter did, I think Violet did, we did nothing. So yes, I say get one of those teachers from me, yeah. Get their ass up this year.
My name's Riverdale. I'm a second generation Sarah Porter and my third generation here. And I also second and agree with the two Alston students and the teacher moving up. Because when I was in Sarah Porter, there was a very naughty Alston student who got kicked out of Alston and then transferred to Sarah Porter. Principal Hicks may remember Jason Nichols. Sorry.
Oh, no names.
Sorry, it's been a few decades, so, but yeah, and so I agree with second that stuff, because for the kids, I really think that's the least disruptive. And realistically, the two second graders have only been in house at primary for a couple of years, depending on where they started preschool. Versus moving my third grader, who's been, well, fourth grader now, that's been there for a few years and very much stuck in his ways with this art. And his friends, for that matter, because these kids. I pity the high school when they get here.
Yeah. Let make sure everybody gets on the phone first. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to wish Greg's, Abby's, first year up, but it's her second year. I honestly really had her lined up. I wanted her to go to, Surrey School in Surrey, New Hampshire. Because of, the way that school was structured, but I've been extremely impressed. In fact, Surrey called me the other day and said, hey, we have an opening for Abby. And I said, no, I think she's really doing well at Sarah Porter. I think she needs to stay at Sarah Porter, and please take her off the wait list. I was very impressed with everything that's gone on. I'm not impressed with some of the communication. Okay, you know, we live in an instant world now, and we can get emails about a superintendent, you know, resigning or moving on, but we don't get emails about, you know, a teacher. The community is your biggest asset here, and it needs to be brought into the schools. It needs to know. We need to be out there trying to help you find people to fill these roles and advertise and letting people know that we have a problem. But if we don't know, how can we help? Because we're not in the schools. We need to be in the schools. We need to be included more in the community, in our schools, with our kids. Because the kids are all growing up tight. Right?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm Mike Rowena, I live in my head. I stress the importance of exit interviews. You have people leaving. We want to retain people, retention is a big thing. And what can we do to change that so we don't wind up in these predicaments, right? That's what you want all the way around. So I'd love for the board to come up with a plan moving forward. We just had half of one right here. I mean, to point out flaws with Elspeth Primary. And with that, I know we lost Mrs. Neely to Elspeth Primary, I'm assuming, took your position.
No.
Or no,
To the secretary.
okay, the secretary's position. But anyway, that would be a great start. Also, I've been in this room for an hour and I tapped on somebody's shoulder and asked, hey, what are you doing next year? What are you doing at the end of August? And she had volunteered to do 2 days a week because of retirement constraints. She just told me to an individual today. So we got 2 days covered. I don't know if that's been brought to the board's attention or not. Not naming any names of somebody who retired recently. I feel like you guys, a couple of you guys sitting at that horseshoe table have been in this business for a long time. And could tap on a couple shoulders, hey, can we get coverage for a short period of time instead of this flare that went up tonight? And, you know, figure out what we can do next month. I feel that, you know, I have an 8-year-old boy who's going into this stars class and got Richard Dole. I feel that some incidents that were handled, rulings that were overturned while he was in Ms. Bush's class may have led to, some of the management may have led to her leaving. It's called micromanagement in other places. I received a phone call one night. Nope, don't listen to what the report was. We're gonna do it a different way. So I'm all for stringing them up at a flagpole and school suspension, go for it, if that's what he needs, absolutely, but when you pull out the carpet from under your employees, maybe an issue. Might want to look into it.
Is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet who would like to speak? Seeing none, I'm gonna ask, if you would like 3 more minutes? All right, thank you. Andrea?
Yeah, so I just have one other thing. So when we come to these, quite often public comment is given, but our questions don't get answered. So is there a way we can submit our questions ahead of time for the meeting next week so that we can get answers?
That would be wonderful.
So
Please.
where should those questions go?
Information.
To Misty?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
perfect.
How do we get there?
Email?
If you can email, is it Bushy?
Yep, it's Bushy, BUSHEE@SAU60.org.
Your email's on the
District website.
district's
Under the school
website
board.
as well.
Yep.
And remember, next week it's gonna be a public hearing, I'm sorry, but next week's gonna be a public forum, right? It's not gonna be nearly as stringent as what we're doing now. Like, if you want questions answered, you're gonna have the people in the room that probably have those answers. I can't
Yeah, wanna make
guarantee
sure we
you.
can get answers. So I want to submit their questions ahead of time, so you guys can prepare and have those answers so that we can move forward with this. And I'll offer it again. I will post job listings. I'm already doing it for work, so I'll just add it to it. If you want me to do that, I'm happy to help the district that way. Happy to sit on our hiring committee, look at resumes, whatever.
I appreciate that. I want to just also put out there that all of these listings are on our website. So if you're interested in helping the district in that way, feel free to go there and post them. They're all publicly posted. It would absolutely be appreciated if you spread that as far and wide as possible.
So does the district post outside of so if I'm not looking for, I don't know to go to SAU60 if I'm a teacher or whatever. Where does the district advertise their listings besides the website?
Bill, would you like to answer that?
Sure. Bill Mickey, I'm the Community Resources Director.
Thank you for introducing yourself.
Well,
I appreciate that. No one else has done that.
So we rely pretty heavily on the district posting, but everything that's posted there is posted on Ed Jobs, New Hampshire. Yes, so it's spread far and wide, and it's probably the primary source that educators in New Hampshire are looking at. I mean, we have teachers in the room, I think you were all aware of this too. That's the primary source, and so we've had this job posted there. We've had some success, not necessarily with this position, but with other open positions, so it gets a far and wide reach for educators in New Hampshire.
Just an addition, I'm not sure if the school board, knows that the Langdon community is very involved in Sarah Porter. And our community club twice a year donates books to every student. Once to the student to take home personally, and once for every student to stay in the school library. We raise money in our town with things that we do in order to provide that for the school.
Thank you.
Melissa, do you want to do a quick introduction? Since people may want to know some of these people are sitting at the tables.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, let's start online. We have Sarah Vogel from Acworth. We have Shelley Andrews from Charlestown, Kevin Keith from Langdon, Joe Levesque from Alstead. I'm Alyssa Bascom. I'm an at-large member, but I'm from Charlestown. And then we have Kevin, your principal. We have Corey Leclerc, who was introduced as our acting superintendent. We have Misty Bushy. She's our administrative assistant to the superintendent and our board clerk. And we also have Lori Schmidt. She is our BA here in the district. And Bill Mickey, our HR representative. So, thank you.
When you do advertise this meeting for next week, could you put on there, please direct the questions to.
Absolutely.
So that everybody else that's not here can get that same information and be able to consolidate things.
And I would just like to add that we have, and you can see this in our previous minutes, that we have talked with Bill Nicky extensively about what we can do to recruit more people, what we can do to retain the people we have, things like that. But this was just, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, maybe a month and a half tops. And I don't think those programs have had a chance to really gel and start helping. But you know, I mean, we are aware that we don't want people to leave, and we want to find out why they're leaving and see if there's anything we can do to retain them. And I just wanted to let you know that the board's aware that we do have this overall problem in our district, that people do leave. And we're trying to get exit interviews and things like that in place so that we can find out why and see if there's anything we can do to keep them there.
I'd like to, and I don't want to speak for all of my colleagues, but my guess is, you know, as a principal, I know exactly why the people left my building who left my building.
Yeah.
We had those conversations, I'm very aware of it, and, we don't currently have a mechanism for a feedback loop regarding that back to the board. But my guess is if you ask the building principals around the district, they could probably tell you with a fair amount of certainty, you know, the people who left them, why they left.
Yeah.
Because at an individual level, we've had the conversation, there's just not that overarching structure that you're referencing, yet Bill is still in his first year with us.
Yeah.
And so essentially building an HR department for our district, because that didn't
Because it's just the one guy.
before.
We didn't have that, and I totally understand that, and it's in its infancy, but at least I want you folks to know that the board is aware that we have a problem and we're trying to address it.
On that note, there is also a position open in HR, if anybody knows somebody, please have them apply. But I was remiss at not introducing Brendan, our IT specialist here. He keeps us all connected and we couldn't do it without him, so I want to make sure he gets his due as well. Is there anybody else who would like to speak at this moment?
Devin Gallagher, Langen, on solution one there. You know, maintain Sarah Porter building, keep funding the same. And the estimated savings would be 20,000. I don't know the exact numbers of what it is, but what it costs to educate a student in Alsted is a lot less than what it costs in Langdon. So transferring those kids over, why wouldn't we see a much larger cost savings? You know, compared to that 20,000 that you're putting out. Wouldn't that cost, if there's no more hiring, there wouldn't be any additional hires? Wouldn't that cost to educate a student go from, say, 28,000 down to 22 a student? And therefore that cost being much more significant than the 20,000.
May I address that one here?
Please do.
Okay, I think that's a fair question, right? And one that's probably on a lot of people's mind. I think if you're looking as a Langdon community toward a longer term solution that's different than what you're currently operating, then you have those conversations as a community and talk about costs and savings and what does it cost to educate a child here versus an Alsted solution versus in-house and all of those things. And I recognize that the general conversation around this is all about closure. I am not all about closure. In Charleston, I'll have that conversation with you all day long. For Langdon, not my business really. And so because of that, I don't personally, and nor do I want to ask staff to monkey with tax rates across the two districts and all of that for a temporary scenario, because that's going to have a much wider spread, longer term impact. If we shift things around between funding sources now and artificially drop it for this year because of our scenario, and then it comes back to level next year, it's going to feel like a much more significant spike. And part of this is to some degree, like leveling things so that everyone is on a consistent platform. In the top option, the temporary move, there's still the costs associated with the vacant position that would be saved in the scenario where we only move the one individual over, because we don't have that second person, right? So there are those cost savings. We wouldn't completely, shelve or mothball the building because we're not shutting it down. It's temporary, so certain things you wanna keep operating. You wanna make sure the power is on so that you can. Anytime a building sits for too long, bad things happen. So you wanna make sure that it stays intact and stays operational, right? You don't wanna mothball, that's not the point here. So you wanna keep things intact. So there's certain, you're gonna have to keep the heat on it, it's slightly above freezing. You're gonna have to make sure that the lights are on, so different emergency systems and alerts can work. So we can be informed if something bad happens there, that we're not necessarily monitoring because we're not there every day, those types of things. So some of those costs with the building wouldn't actually disappear in this model because it's a temporary model. And then in terms of the salary, you know, the community would still be responsible for the remaining teacher salary, but that person would just be working in a different work location. Still working for Langdon, but just a different location that they would report to each day. So there, the piece.
Sorry, but if she moves to the Outset, she becomes an employee of the Outset Primary School.
That's not, in a temporary model, I'm not sure that that's the way you would want to do it, right? We're talking about a temporary model based on our current circumstances. She's a Langdon employee.
Because I went teaching third and fourth grade over there, I'd be a parent.
You'd be
first grade, so I
You'd
would.
be teaching something there, right? Again, to be determined, you would be teaching something there, but you could just, the salary would still be attached to the human. I really would caution you against monkeying with tax rates too much at this point in time, because that's gonna have you can't change the tax rates at this time. Like, you don't wanna do that, so you have to work within your current structure. So if that means she reports to a different building for the day, then she reports to a different building for a day. So with that, there wouldn't be the cost savings in a temporary model that you potentially could or should or explore in a more permanent model, whatever that might be. Because there's these other pieces that are already in play that need to be carried out. That's a really vague way of saying nothing to you, and I get that. It's a very, part of the problem with public education is we like to complicate things so much that you can't understand them, and we can't understand them either. So we just continue to operate in this weird cycle. And part of it has to do with like how we're currently funded and structured and all of those things, and when decisions have to be made, and when contracts have to go out, and when we have to report to say what our tax rates are going to be and what they're not going to be. But the most efficient, simplest way to manage a temporary scenario is just keep funding status quo, achieve the savings from not having to have the trash picked up every week, and maintain that for the community to then determine what you all want to do in the long term. I wouldn't want to put you as a community in a position where you're now having to clean up temporary decisions over a longer period of time. And this is likely the most efficient way to just maintain, so you don't have a big old cleanup at the end. I'm happy to talk to you further, but I would rather you talk to Lori, who actually knows what she's talking about in this area, not me. But I think the bigger picture is you just don't create problems that don't currently exist. And that, if we start monkeying with people, you're gonna create a much larger problem in the bell that's harder to unring than if you're just staying on a temporary focus.
Well, Lauren, will we have a few more answers to this next Thursday?
I'd be happy to speak to it. A greater length on Thursday.
Excellent. So definitely, if there's funding questions, please do email them to Misty so that Laura can prepare to have more and clear numbers for such questions.
Hi, Jesse, you still from Langdon. I just wanted to make a suggestion for Thursday. Previously you guys used to sit this way and then everybody could see you. And that's much nicer than us sitting here looking at us in your back. So
We
we
agree.
agree. Be a suggestion for Thursday to feel a little more open to conversation and, nice communication back and forth.
Yes, thank you.
Shelby Barnes, Langdon. Just a question for you. On the graph you put up earlier, Elston primary grades 1 and 2 are a combined class. Is that what I'm understanding? Or is that individual first grade, second grade class?
You want or want to?
First grade. and second grade.
So under your current model, without any of this stuff, so separate
That's-
one and
That's a 1-2. Under the.
without talking about Langdon, only Allsted, if you're a 1-2,
We're 1-2 right
1-2 combined,
1, 2 combined.
currently, yes.
Okay, so if you're talking about one of your solutions there is just to move the second out of Sarah Porter to Elston.
The second one on the list is temporarily move grades 1 and 2 to
Right.
Allsted.
Right. If it was more feasible, I would like another potential solution to be put up to move that second grade, those 2 students from Alsted to Langdon as a potential solution with a staff member.
Thank you.
To free up somebody possible. I think that's something we should seriously consider.
Do we have anybody else who would like to speak?
I think there was one thing we just wanted to piggyback down there that someone had mentioned, just the investment in Sarah Porter in the town and communities investment. You know, programs offering books to students, which they love, by the way. But we were talking about the investment in the building, and I just think it's important. While we are throwing out temporary, permanent, long-term, whatever, just, I think it's notable, all of the, kind of investment we put into the building this year. I don't know all the specifics, but I do know that there was chimney work, plumbing, there's a new furnace, septic. So just throwing that out there when we're talking about closing a building down, this community's put money into that. And that was for the long term.
Thank you. All right, then at this, so public comment, I'm going to close that portion of our meeting. At this time, I will entertain a motion to go into non-public, in which case we thank you all for being here.
I think you want to say what the. Are you fairly like? That it's not like.
Thank you.